Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 420 of the Stacey West podcast. I'm your host tonight, Ben, and I'm joined by Chris on what is already proving to be quite a noisy bonfire night. Chris, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. No fireworks to report around here as of yet. Actually, when Charlie and I were recording on Sunday, there was quite a few, oddly. Nothing around here. I'm all right, thank you. Much better than I would have been 3 or 4 hours ago because I had to go to the dentist today.
Oh, dear.
And I really don't like going to the dentist at all. So much so that when my dentist shut 16 years ago, I hadn't been since.
Oh, right, okay.
And I thought I really ought to get it sorted and get seen to. Thankfully, it was all okay. But I've been terrified about it all day. But yeah, didn't enjoy it. But finally, a bit of peace of mind and can forget about it now for a year. But that's been my day. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, no, I've been just keeping busy, doing lots of things at work, and yeah, it's all good. I don't know if I've ever told my my dentist horror story on the podcast. So this feels like a decent opportunity.
Do it.
So the day before I went to university, we said, right, let's go out and celebrate, because there was a bunch of us leaving. So we all went out to I'm sure you will remember Scream on the
oh yes, what a place.
Yep. So we started off in Quayside, then went upstairs to Scream, got very, very drunk, and I think I was politely asked to leave the establishment at around 2:30 in the morning, and went outside. My mates joined me. They started walking off. I needed to tie my shoe, so I tied my shoe up, and then I ran to catch up with my friends. And as you do when you're 18, you jump on your mate's back and go, way! And I did that, except my mate leant forward, and I swan dived over the top of my mate, and I landed on the concrete on my teeth. So I smashed my 2 front teeth in, and then had to. There was an ambulance that had been called for somebody, so my mates just basically bundled me into this ambulance, and they called my dad to come and to let him know what was going on. But the problem was my dad was going to Scotland with a few of his motorbike friends at 6 o'clock in the morning. So he answered the phone very angrily, and he was like, yeah, is that Mr. Ward? It's the paramedics. And he switched from to, oh God, what's he done? So yeah, I then had to arrange for a dentist the following day, because my dentist was going on holiday and he'd given his nurses and everybody the day off. Eventually, he opened up the surgery, and I had to do the job of the nurses while I was incredibly hungover, very concussed, and with 2 smashed front teeth. So I was there holding the spit sucker, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible.
Oh, that's the sort of thing that should be on a sort of TV show. That'd be a great opening scene on like In-Betweeners or something. How was Freshers Week following that?
Interesting, because my dentist was also he also had a prescription license. So I went to university with an awful lot of very strong prescription painkillers.
But you was everyone's best mate. How to make friends quickly, eh?
Yeah, you could say that. No, it was a very interesting time. Was that? But yeah, that was that. So yeah, these are caps on the front.
Never know.
There you go. So yeah, other interesting times. I mean, obviously, yeah, we had you had a very interesting time at the weekend. You spoke all about that on Sunday's podcast, and it would be remiss not to mention that I listened to the Imps Plus commentary and was thoroughly entertained all the way through. You did a very good job, my friend. It was excellent.
Oh, thanks. Loved it. Had a great time.
Good stuff. So yeah, we only have one game to talk about and preview this week, and that is Rotherham away. So we will touch on that in the second half of the show. But to start off with, we put the call out, as we often do, to patrons for some questions. And there was a few, I think there was maybe one or two that got missed off at the weekend as well. So we're going to jump straight into it with a question that came from, and this is where I've let myself down because I had it and then it's gone. Johnny Benton asked in the Discord, he said, worst away day, football included, so not just the day around it. Playoff loss to Southend for Johnny. Lost, cried, then got laughed at by a Southend fan while queuing for a McDonald's. He was about 12. That was a pretty tough one to take.
Yeah, beat that.
I mean, the Bournemouth one, I don't think anybody expected to be there. So
Exactly,
when we lost, it was like, oh, okay, that was fun, wasn't it? You know, I think the fact that we were even there was a bonus. But the Southend one, that did hurt quite a lot because I think, we all kind of went in for we went in with the expectation, and then I still can't quite wrap my head around some of the substitutions in that game. But there we go.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's difficult. I find it really difficult to think of a Lincoln game here because it's one overriding footballing memory, which it came straight to mind for me as a worst away day. So I will tell the story, but it's not as a fan; it's as a player. But in terms of the playoffs, I'm totally with you. I wasn't even really upset at all at Cardiff the first time. It was just a nice day out. It was fun to be there. None of us expected to be there at all, did we? But yeah, the Southend one certainly had a bit more riding. It felt like it had more riding on it. It felt like that was our proper go at the playoffs. The first time was a nice day out. This is a proper attempt at going up, and it felt a bit flat after that. But my worst away day ever was there's so many. I promise you this is true. So as a few people are maybe aware, I played for the academy as a kid. But what they used to do when you were under 16, which is like year 11 at school, the last year that you're part of the academy before you potentially have a scholarship actually at the club. What they used to do in the old academy, or the Centre of Excellence as it was called back in the day, is they used to let us know before Christmas if we were not being kept on, to give us a few months to go on trial at other clubs to potentially then get a deal somewhere else. Now, I didn't get offered a scholarship and ended up going to Peterborough of all places for a few months. Funny how things turned out, isn't it? Now, played, I think, 6 or 7 games at Peterborough. I wasn't on my best form in any of them, in all honesty. But the final match was away at Wickham. Now, how it used to work at that level is when you played in Lincoln's academy, like all of your games were north. So basically, it was Hull, Doncaster, Rotherham, Darlington, etc., etc., etc. But Peterborough, they were like the most northern team out of their section. So it was an hour and a half down to Peterborough. And then every single away game was even further south. God. So I was down into it, travelled a couple of hours with my dad, who carted me here, there, and everywhere, bless him. And he always used to just park his car in London Road car park and sit and wait for hours for me to get back. Like, it's amazing that he did it for me. Anyway, we got on this little minibus, drove all the way down to Wickham, played a game, lost 3-0. It was a really bad day. I let one goal in that was definitely my fault, and I felt awful about it. And I just knew, well, I'm definitely not getting a scholarship now. So I'd already, nothing official, but I knew that was the end of my dream on that day. Driving back, bus broke down. So then they had to ring someone from Peterborough to go and get the other minibus to come and pick us all up. So we were sat there waiting at the side of the road for ages. I didn't even know the lads that well, so there wasn't a lot of conversation going on. Before the time where on your phone you had loads of games, I think I must have just played Snake over and over and over again. On the way back up in the second minibus, we popped off at a services just to get a bite to eat, and the managers had promised us all a Burger King because we'd been waiting for ages, and there was no burgers at the Burger King.
That's their job.
Yeah, so we went to King and had chicken nuggets or something. I got all the way back. My dad had fallen asleep in the car, so I gave him a fright as I knocked on the window to get him back. And yeah, then we finally got home at stupid o'clock. But yeah, I can't help but thinking that has to be my worst ever away day at football.
Yeah, I can see that one. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any from from playing days because I didn't have any playing days. Was went here, there, and everywhere doing mid-links games refereeing, but was never got chased out the car park. Although I do have one horror story from a refereeing performance, which I'll save for another podcast when we have a crap ref, no doubt.
Yeah, yes, good. So what would you pick though as your worst away day?
My worst away day, and it's one that was I think it was actually the second one in the list that Gary put up for the FA Cup exits. It was Emily away. Like, obviously, we're playing at the then McAlpine. It was bitterly cold. Bitterly cold. Like, I mean, I'm talking black ice on pavement level cold. It was horrendous. And for those of you that don't know, I was in the band at the time. So we'd cleared it with the staff at the McAlpine beforehand, said, can we bring all the kit? Yep, not a problem. You can bring all that stuff in. So we got on the bus, and the bus basically slid half the way to Huddersfield because of the conditions. We finally got there, and it was where the bus parked. There's a big hill that goes up to the away end at the McAlpine, and where we got all the stuff off, and the path was essentially frozen. So we got all the stuff off the bus, trumpets, drums, stands, flags, everything. Struggled our way all the way up to the stadium, got to the turnstile, and the steward just basically turned around and went, "No."
Oh God!
And we're like, "What do you mean, no?" He's like, "No, we've not been told about this. You're not bringing all that crap in." But we've had it cleared, and again, this is before the days of smartphones, so we couldn't pull up an email. It was just literally, we've been told, and they're saying, no, you haven't. So we went, right, okay, crap. So slid all the way back down the hill, put all the stuff back on the bus. But it must have been about -2. It was horrendous. Then walked all the way back up to the turnstiles, got in and thought, oh, bloody hell. All right, fine. Sat there, grumpy as sin, all of us together. And then Helen, who was also in the band, she showed up late, or later than we did, and she didn't have any problems getting in with her saxophone.
Oh.
So she found all of us, sat with us, and went, where's all the rest of the stuff? Well, we were told we couldn't bring it in. So Helen was there on her own, bless her, playing the saxophone for the entire 90 minutes, solo. Well, it was 90 plus minutes, wasn't it, in the end? Because obviously the game was terrible as well. Going out on penalties to a team that low and missing out on a chance to play West Ham. It was just awful all round. It was so cold. That's a big explosion. It was so very, very cold. And I just remember being quite young and just really getting my first taste of absolute footballing disappointment. I was very grumpy for a few days after that one.
First of many, I imagine. Just think, if you were allowed to take that whole kit in, maybe we would have won, because it's a wonderful atmosphere you'd have all created, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, no. So that was my worst away day. Steve agrees with me, says that Emily match was bloody freezing. It was. I don't think I've been to a football match colder than that. And I do include the Grimsby home win on my birthday a few years back. Middle of March, snowy as anything.
Yeah. There was the Morecambe game that Jason Shackles scored a free kick where hardly anyone celebrated because we were all frozen to the spot.
Yeah, I remember that one as well. Keith has dropped his one in here. Says Swansea away 2-0 defeat when we were relegated to the conference. Luckily, Murphy came back to guide us back to the league. Yeah, I mean, obviously, any sort of away game where there's big stakes and you lose it is not ideal. Ian says Crawley away was terrible last year in the FA Cup. We won, but Crawley isn't the nicest town. Yeah. I suppose you can have bad away days when you win as well.
Good point. Yeah, just go to crap towns instead. We had a few of those in the National League, didn't we? Bloody hell.
Yeah. No, there's. I remember being a bit shocked when we went to Hull when we won on the first game that they'd lost in their new stadium.
Bimo scored the pen.
Yeah, I remember that. And as we were walking out of the ground, like we'd parked on a side street somewhere, And we walked out the ground and we turned into the street that we were parked in. And literally, as we turned around, there was just a wall of amber and black coming towards us. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
That was a very scary experience. That was my first ever away game. Game, which was probably a stupid one to pick, but me and my dad weren't really that clued up at the time. That's the first time I'd ever been to an away game because it was this big new fancy stadium, not too far away. Terrifying. It was all right when you got on the ground, but it was terrifying around it.
Yeah. No, it was. That was a moment for sure when you turn around and all of a sudden there's just this sea coming towards you of opposition fans. You go, okay. And I remember a friend of mine actually telling me that he got lost around some of the side streets, and there was some of the unsavory characters, shall we say, looking for people, and one of them went up to him, and they were, "Hey lad, have you seen any Lincoln?" And he sort of had his coat done up, and he actually had his Lincoln shirt on, so he had his coat done all the way up, and he just instinctively went, "No, I ain't seen nobody." And then, "All right, cheers," and that was that. So that was his. That was our cry to him for a few years after that. Was "No, seen nobody."
That's when accents are allowed.
Yes,
definitely 100%. Allowed in those situations.
there are some certain situations where they're definitely not allowed, mainly when we try and do impressions. But that was definitely one. Keith says as well, just before we move on, coldest I've been is at Hartlepool, a night match in winter. I did question my sanity 20 minutes in. Yeah, no, that's crazy. And losing 7-1 to Colchester was a certain highlight for me. Yeah, understandable, that one, in terms of the result. So, right, let's move on to the next question that we've got, which was, I think you and Charlie touched on it on Sunday, but we'll go over it a little bit more. The benefits of playing or not playing the Doncaster game. Obviously, I think the time has possibly passed at this stage. I don't know. For
good
calling
question.
The game off, because I know we were toying with the idea, weren't we, of it being today?
Good point. I don't know why I had it in my head that Friday was the deadline, but I could be completely wrong with that.
It may well be, because I think is it. Yeah, I think you'd have to give more than a week.
I thought it was 8 days. I thought it was 8 days, but
okay,
I could be wrong. I don't actually know where I've got that from. 5 days from Devon Imp in the chat.
Okay, so right. I mean, I know that the window for the game starts a little bit earlier than Saturday, so it may be that it could be today. It could be. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah. So I mean, obviously, benefits of playing, we get a home game.
Yeah,
like I'm desperate to have a home game. Like obviously, we went to Bradford. You've been to Salford. I think you're going to Rotherham on Saturday. They're relatively close away games, but I just want to be back at the bank.
Yeah, they're still away games. There's still a home advantage to the opposition. That's still a thing. And it's weird because I really understood the reason that the initial Bradford game was postponed. It made sense from a perspective of on the on-field side of things. It did make sense with Ivan not being there, with Conor McGrandles almost certainly being suspended or very likely to be suspended for the game. Turns out he would have been injured anyway. It kind of made sense. And disappointing that it wasn't a Saturday. I couldn't go. I would have gone otherwise. So on a personal note, it was annoying, but completely got it. This time round, I think the circumstances are a little bit different. Firstly, Doncaster aren't as good as Bradford. So even us missing a couple of players, I think we should have enough to get past Doncaster. Secondly, your point, absolutely the most important one. We haven't had a home game for flipping ages. Yeah. And that home advantage is huge. And it helps us get a bit of momentum, get 9,000 people in the bank, getting behind the team. Like, it makes a tangible difference. It really does. You haven't got to travel, fans and players alike. So I just feel the whole reason that we built the squad that we built is to be able to deal with these sort of situations better than our opposition can. And yeah, we're likely to be missing a couple. Doncaster are likely to be missing a couple. It's the time of the season where suspensions and injuries are starting to creep in as well for every team. And the whole reason that we built the squad that we did is so we can deal with that when that happens. So I really think this is a purely personal opinion, but I just think the positives of playing the game hugely outweigh the negatives. And whatever teams put out, I'm sure we'd all just like to be there again, and we'll all support whoever's on the pitch.
Yeah, 100%. While you were talking, I've just brought up the men's international match calendar for FIFA. It is the 10th to the 18th of November, so it will be today if it is 5 days. So that's why we had today in our minds. So it looks like, unless there is a late announcement that we have yet to see, and I'm just checking the club news as I speak, that the game will be on. So.
Yay!
Home game.
Oh, can't wait.
Tipsy Imp and Curry Jacks.
That's your highlight of every Saturday, isn't it?
Of course it is. It's got to be. Yeah. So that's yeah. I mean, look, there are obvious benefits to having a week off, but I think with the squad depth that we have and the ability that we have in the squad is definitely that there's more to be said for playing the game than not, and it looks like at the moment that it will be going ahead.
Yeah. Just quickly on the week off there is a benefit to it, of course there is, but we've got one at the start of December now anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. 2 weeks later, it's like, go on, yeah, go get your Christmas shopping done. So there we go. Right. So next question that we've got came from Andy Brown, who is Devon in the chat. In the Patreon Discord, he says, who will go out on loan in January and who, if anyone, will we bring in? Now, I've got a couple of thoughts on this one. And I think, as much as it pains me to say it, the obvious one for going out, I don't think there's many, but I kind of feel like this might be an exit loan for Lewis Montsma.
Oof. Oh,
I really don't. I really don't like saying it because we all love Lewis, but unless we go very deep in some, into the trophy, I just don't see him dislodging anybody in the first 11.
That's a good point. I wouldn't say exit loan. I could be wrong on this, but I think he's got an extra year left after this season. I think when he signed his deal last Christmas, it was 2.5, which is really good by the club, by the way. However, Lewis is clearly down the pecking order at the moment in our first team. It would be a great opportunity for him just to go and play some football for 6 months and then come back in the summer, either with 6 months of playing pretty much week in, week out, hopefully for a club, and the confidence that that's going to have, because it's the first time he'll have done that ever since his injury, to have played week in, week out for that amount of time. Come back in the summer, hopefully with some confidence to then compete for a place again. Or, of course, maybe find a new home. None of us want that. I think there's a real affection, for obvious reasons, for Lewis and the club and the fan base. But the guy needs to play football, doesn't he? And you could tell he hadn't played a huge amount of football when he came on Saturday. I don't like to dig players out, and he had some decent moments, but it took him 5 minutes to get settled into the game. Yeah, it's a good point. He wasn't even on my list. I don't know why he wasn't on my list, but maybe because it was too painful to say out loud.
Yeah.
It's a good point. But yeah, the guy needs to play games.
It's like taking a puppy to get put down, isn't it? It's like, I really don't want to. I really, really don't want to. So sorry that there are several explosions going on all around me at the moment. I'm trying to be very calm about it all, but it's yeah. The other one that I thought about was maybe Oscar Thorne if he can't get into the matchday squad. But I think those two are the ones for me where I just think, yeah, that they are the obvious candidates for going out on loan. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts were on that one, Chris.
Yeah, I thought Oscar, if he's not in and around the first team squad, because he's rarely getting on the bench. He got on the bench on Saturday, but that's because we could name 9 subs. And of course, we've now got players potentially out. We haven't had an update as of yet on both Ben House and Freddie Draper's injuries. So obviously we'll hope they're not too serious. But if they are longer term, then there may well be some more opportunities there for Oscar. But if they are harder to come by, makes total sense for him to go out and learn and get some more experience playing more regularly. He's one of those players that's on a 4-year deal for a reason, similar to Rob Street from last year, similar to JJ McKinnon, which maybe is still a little bit up in the air as to whether that's a success or not yet. But yeah, we've certainly seen the development curve from Rob Street, haven't we, from compared to where he was this time last year. And then maybe not properly first team players, but Oisin Gallagher, I think, is back in training now, so I'd expect to see him go and get some football as well. But
yeah, I mean, Oisin feels to me like the club have kept him in to help with his recovery. I think if he was fully fit, he would be out on loan at the moment. Obviously, he was out on loan at Boston last season and had that absolute horror tackle that's basically kept him out for an extended period of time. And yeah, I'd probably agree with Andy in the chat. He also says there Charlie Parks as well.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Paul asked a question actually. He says, can Thorne play for another league club? Hasn't he played for us and Colchester this season? Did he play for Colchester before he came over to us?
It was in late-ish in the window. I don't know, but we have to check. We'll have to check that. That's a really good question, Paul. We'll check that We'll check that at the halfway break and get back to you.
Yes,
but that's a good question. But if not, then obviously finding the right loan is going to be more difficult for him. I for one, the little snippets I've seen, really like Oscar, and I think he's got some really good raw ability. I would quite like to see him in the matchday squad. I don't know. Maybe I'm a sucker for a winger, but I like him. I'd like to see a little bit more of him.
Yeah, I can answer the question. He has. He has played. He played 2 games for Colchester, and 197 minutes, 1 assist, and he played in the League Cup as well. And came off the bench. So yeah. Oh, sorry, 2 appearances and 2 off the bench for Colchester. So yeah, cool. That's a very good point. So he cannot go out on loan.
Or he can't go out on loan to a league club, so he could go National League and play week in, week out. Because as much as we signed him from Colchester, and he made quite a few appearances for Colchester, hadn't actually had that many starts for Colchester. He's very much a player at the start of his development as a professional. So a National League loan would make sense if he needs game time and we feel that's his level at the moment. Or of course, we have sent players out on loan to Ireland before, and it's not done Sean Rowan, Freddie Draper any harm, has it? So. We'll see, but like I say, I the little snippets I've seen from Oscar, I liked his impact at Colchester for the little bits I saw there as well. So I think we've got a player in there, but he's a player that needs a bit of an opportunity, whether that be with us later in the season or whether that be elsewhere for 6 months. But it will certainly be with an idea, I imagine, of coming back in for a starting berth this time next season.
Yeah. Andy also says, what about the lad that went to Billericay and got recalled? Was that Pardington?
No, it was that was Bola Okawoyi.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so he wasn't really I think the management changed at Billericay and it made more sense to bring him back so he could be in our environment day in, day out rather than out of favour at a new manager. And then Pardington went out on loan to Telford to get some game time and then got recalled at a game later because got injured.
It was only a month's loan anyway, wasn't it? So yeah, I think Pardington and Bowl will probably be the ones additionally then if we're looking at getting the younger players out into it. But in terms of the first teamers, I think I hate to say it, but I think Lewis possibly with a view to moving on, but we shall see. In terms of coming in, Chris, what do you think we might need in January?
I don't want this to be coming across as sitting on the fence, but not a lot. I really like our squad. The only one element I would say would be central midfield because we've brought Finlay Barbrook in as a bit of a cover option in there. It appears who hasn't been seen very much, but the other 3 are very from what we've seen. You could play any 2 of 3 from McGrandles, Varfolomaev and Bayliss, and probably would all be pretty happy. But if you pick up an injury or a suspension to one of those players. Maybe this is unfair to Finland, but we haven't seen much of him, and it therefore indicates he's down the pecking order and not quite on the same level. It'd be nice to have a 4th option that is of an equivalent stature, but also Dom Jeffries is going to be back in the squad by the time the January transfer window ticks over. So I don't think we'll necessarily need someone there. For me, I like the idea of adding a really dynamic wide player to our team, but I think that's mainly because we haven't actually selected them that often in the lineups so far this season. Not that we don't actually have them in the squad. Eric Ring got his start on Saturday, and I really like Eric to push on. Rico Hackett's probably the only out-and-out winger that has had a few appearances there so far. So yeah, but I really like our squad. I'm really happy with our squad. It'll be quality over quantity, because I think the quantity's fine, quality's decent. But if an opportunity arises that significantly improves any individual position on the pitch, I think it's nice to be in a position where we can act upon that. But I don't think we're desperate for anything.
No, I would agree. I think my notes that I've got here, I've said basically the same. I said midfield cover maybe, although you've got Don Jeffries and Jack Moylan on the fringes, so they will be coming in. Obviously, Moylan's not going to play in those sixes, but Jeffries can. So it's one of those where you think, okay, that there will be an option that's there. The other one that I've got written down is right back cover, because obviously Dexter Lembekisa's loan will be up in January, so you're gonna potentially need cover for Tendai. So
it's
whether we'd go for something longer term and buy somebody in at that point, or whether it would be a loan situation to have that cover for the rest of the season.
This is a theory. This might be a little bit blue sky, but the theory I have is that Oscar Thorne can play right back and right wing, and quite comfortably play both roles. And I'm wondering whether bringing Dexter in just took the pressure off Oscar to have to be our fullback cover, so he can be part of the squad, get used to surroundings, have some coaching from our talented coaches. We know that they're good at developing players and improving their ability. And then when January comes around, Dexter goes back to Wolves after saying thank you very much for your 6 months here. And then we've got Oscar, who's been in the building for 6 months, who can now fill in. And I think, and maybe this is maybe an argument for keeping Lewis around, because if we, as we have regularly so far this season, we don't often start in a back three shape, but we often finish a match in a back three shape, with Tendai playing as a wing back. Now, what's great about Tendai is he's just as comfortable playing as a fullback in a 4 as he is a wing back in a 3. However, if we play a fullback in a 4, we need that more defensive mind. Tom Heyman is very comfortable playing there. If we need that more attacking outlet, then we probably pick Dexter at the moment. But I can't see a reason why Oscar couldn't do that role going forward. Hey, maybe that's the reason why there was a 6 months loan for Dexter and it wasn't a full year. And also, I suppose there's no reason it can't be extended as well. We don't know
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's things beyond the control of our pie in the sky thinking, I guess. But yeah, that's the only other area that I thought, go on.
Just one other thing. I know we probably don't want to speculate too much, but we of course were linked with Josh Honohan, weren't we, in the summer of Shamrock Rovers? And we don't know anything more than anyone else does, but that doesn't seem to have gone. That interest doesn't seem to have gone away from what we've seen in the media. And as much as he has been billed as a left back and has been playing left wing back for Shamrock Rovers, he is actually right-footed and is very comfortable playing right back as well. So I think who knows? Maybe you get that. If maybe, who knows? I know Cardiff have been rumoured to be interested as well, so maybe we've missed the boat on that. But yeah, you mentioned maybe another reason why Dexter's loan is only 6 months is because we expect to have someone that can play in that role coming in. Who knows? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, do we? But
no.
I imagine all these things have been thought about ahead of time before we've even considered them.
I would expect so. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less. And the only other thing that I'd say on that is that the reason, obviously, that was kind of alluded to that we brought Dexter in is because he's a full international, which would give us the opportunity to potentially call games off. There is only one more international window in the season, and that is at the end of March. So,
yeah. And there's another window between now and then, of course, which allows us to have the flexibility and revisit these things in January.
Yeah, but I mean, there is still the possibility that we may have call-ups, ahead of that. But yeah, the ironic thing about that, by the way, the March international break, the game that we would miss if a game was called off, Doncaster away.
Typical.
So there we go.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So, right, that'll do us for the first half of the podcast. When we come back, we will be looking ahead to Rotherham at the weekend, a place that I think I've only seen, we've only won once at before. which was, fun times. So we will give up some time to an advert. We shall say hello to everyone that's listening and watching, and we will come back in just a couple of seconds. And there we go. Cool. Right. Hello to folks on YouTube. David Tuplin was in first this morning. Says evening. This evening. Says evening, guys. At 6:08. That's good going. Andy's in. Says evening all. Ollie's in. Flossie's in. Who else have we got? There's a lot of chat there. Chat around doing the dishes for some reason. That's what I love about the chats before we get going. It's just so random. Ian's in says, good evening and happy bonfire night from a firework crazy London. I can only imagine.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine.
Great. Let's have a look. Leslie's in. Evening, kids. Hey, Mum. Keith Clifton's in says, evening, as I think a war started near me in Lincoln. Flossie says, ouch. Nice gnashes, Ben. That must have hurt, says Ian. Where are we? Mick Kennedy says, listening in from the Philippines at 3 a.m.
Oh, Mick. Good. I'm really hoping you haven't specifically stayed up just to listen to this.
How disappointing would that be?
Thank you.
Ian says, I wonder what in-betweener's character Ben would be. I think it would be Simon, just for the fact that I had the hair with the big quiff. And I also did have a Fiat Cinquecento at one point when I was learning.
Did you?
Yeah.
We've had this discussion quite a few times in our friendship group, and everyone said I was Simon too.
Yeah. It's either that or Will, but no one wants to be Will.
No,
John says, evening all. Let's have a look. Who else have we got? And then it just turned into some talk about the games. I think I saw, Jacob's in as well. Hey guys, how you doing? Watching live. Love watching you guys. Beautiful. We love you being here, man. It's always good. It's always very good. Carl's in, says, evening chaps. Hope you're well. We are doing very well. Thank you very much. Walter's in as well, says evening. And I think that's about it. There was another question, actually, which we may possibly talk about. Do you see similarities in Kennedy's style?
That's a really good question.
To defend and counter when we are seemingly setting up under Skubala, ignoring Posh. Should we come back to that when we come back?
Yeah, that kind of links a little bit into Rotherham, I think. So that's a good question.
Cool. We shall do that.
But can you please remind me?
Yes. Well, okay. we'll open the second half with that question then.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that is all good. Right. I think that's everybody. So yeah, we'll come back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back. That was some form of advert. And while we were saying hello to everybody on the YouTubes live, we did realize that we had a question. And this comes from Ue4105. Ue? I don't know. He says, do you see similarities in Kennedy's style in let's try to defend and counter a 1-0 to how we are seemingly setting up under Skubala away, ignoring Posh?
It's a really good question. My honest answer is not really. No. I appreciate that when we are not scoring too many goals, and particularly on Saturday against Salford, changing to a back five at 1-0 up on 65, 66 minutes might have felt a little bit like that. Honestly, don't feel that was the intention. I think that was mainly to have square peg in square holes, and a shape change was the only way of necessitating that with the players that had gone off injured and things and who was available. So I'm happy to kind of write Saturday off as not really being part of that conversation. I think there was one thing that was really apparent under Mark Kennedy, which is that we were crap as an attacking team. Not in general.
Glad you've got a caveat there.
Yeah, as an attacking team. We're fine. We're good defensively on the whole. But we were really poor attacking. And I seem to remember a podcast we did maybe 2 or 3 weeks before he was sacked, starting to become really concerned around some of the underlying data around our attacking metrics. And even though we'd got on the right side of some results and we'd scored some goals and we felt like we were doing okay, if you were analysing any other team without a vested interest, you'd be looking at that and thinking, some point in the not too distant future, they're going to stop running quite so hot and they're going to start dropping down the league because you can't continue to win games on that few amount of chances that has been created. And lo and behold, that's what happened. Now, it's really different at the moment because even though we're not getting the goals and we've scored, 1 goal in 4 games, we're still creating really good chances, particularly at the start of matches. And we're still going after matches to try and win them, even away from home. We came out of the traps flying against Orient, came out of the traps flying against Bradford in 2 away games. Neither of them did we win. Neither of those did we score, but we flipping should have. And the difference between that and Mark Kennedy is that we wouldn't have had those opportunities in the first place. So, I think maybe the last 10 minutes might look similar if we're ahead, but I don't think the rest of it does. I think the intention behind how we set up is a lot more tactically astute. It's a lot more front-footed, even if it can look one-dimensional at times when we start to go too direct too often or hit the long ball too early. But I think the intention behind how we play now is very, very, very different to under Mark Kennedy. But it's a really good question because there are some similarities when things aren't quite going our way. It does start to look a little bit similar at times. But I do think we're different and we're better, significantly better than we were then. And I'm not going to bore you with all the numbers, but please do just trust me that the numbers do back that up as well.
There we go. I will agree.
Good.
That's my input on that one. Because I don't have the numbers to back up what I would say, but I would agree that I think we look better under Skubala for the most part.
There's a really interesting segue in terms of the data though into the Rotherham game, because obviously we've got Rotherham on Saturday. Now you might look at because if we played them a month ago, we'd have thought, oh, brilliant, they've had a really slow start to the season. This is a big opportunity for us to go and get 3 points. We're on good form, they're on poor form. And then in their last 5 matches, they've drawn 2, won 3. And you think, bugger, they've hit form. And then quite nicely, looking earlier at the underlying data, they're kind of doing at the moment what was happening to Mark Kennedy at the start of that season, in that they're getting on the right side of some results, but probably not really deserving that run that they're on. They're not actually, in my opinion, they're not quite as good as their recent results actually suggest, which was a pleasant surprise because I didn't know that until looking into it to do this prep. But there's an interesting correlation there between maybe the Mark Kennedy question and Rotherham, because they're probably more similar to how Mark Kennedy was setting up in terms of their underlying numbers than we actually are.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I watched the game last night, Rotherham Burton. A hell of a game. Really, really enjoyable match to watch. And to be honest with you, I thought Rotherham were decent in the first half. Obviously, then Burton got 2 goals fairly early on in the second half because Rotherham just sort of went to sleep for a bit. They didn't look like they were particularly interested in the game, and Burton got on top. And I know that the numbers say otherwise, but it felt like Burton probably could have got another one and not complained about it. And then Rotherham got the goal back, and it lifted everybody. And then they obviously came back and got a stoppage time equaliser. But yeah, I mean, I personally thought Rotherham looked okay last night, and Burton are a team that typically, if you were to look at it on paper, we would expect to be beating. And I think they more than held their own against Rotherham last night, and I don't think anybody would have been particularly disappointed or particularly annoyed if Burton would have won, because I thought they were the better team on the evening. But looking at Rotherham, so yeah, you say 12th in the table, had a bit of a slow start, and they've come back into it a little bit. All of the numbers that I've seen suggest that they're kind of about where they should be at the moment. I mean, you're going to prove me wrong with more numbers, no doubt. But some of the numbers that I've seen, particularly around the goals and stuff like that, it seems to be around where they're scoring about the amount that they should be scoring. They're conceding about the amount that they should be conceding. Whether that's, I'm looking at the overall picture of the season so far. So unless there's specific ones related to specific games, it might be a bit more interesting. The one thing that stood out to me and I'm hoping you don't have this because I was quite pleased with this. So far, Rotherham have yet to concede in the opening 20 minutes of a game, and 20% of their goals have been scored in the opening 20. So it sounds like they like to open quite quickly as well as us. And the fact that you're nodding makes me really sad because you
No.
obviously knew that.
Yes, it did, but it's a good point. It's a good point, and there's loads of interesting little nuggets here about Rotherham because, firstly, and if there are any Rotherham fans watching, I imagine there aren't, but if there are, sorry for what's going to come. And I will start this.
It's a good caveat.
Yeah, I really like your stadium. That's a lovely ground, but I don't think you've got a very good football team. And I like to think we're pretty respectful and pretty balanced here. We're not just blindingly positive. Was pretty positive about Salford and that they impressed me in some elements on Saturday. But I'm really not convinced by Rotherham at all. I don't think they're any better than they were at the start of the season, despite the fact that they're getting good results. And again, we mention this regularly, don't we, when we talk about expected goals? In that it's not the most accurate gauge on a game-by-game basis, but over a group of matches, you can start to paint a bit of a picture. Mm-hmm. They've only created more XG than their opponent once all season. That was a 1-0 win against Exeter. 1.25 to 0.41. Every other match, even the games they've won, they've created less XG than their opposition. What does that mean over the course of a season? It just means that they are creating fewer quality chances than their opposition does. And if you do that over the course of a season, you're not going to win many football matches. So over the last 4 games, where they've scored 6 goals in the last 4 games, 3 wins, 1 draw, and they've scored 6 goals from an XG of 2.16. That's unsustainable. But then you kind of think, okay, that's just numbers, Chris. Like, what does that really mean? Well, let's actually look at those 6 goals. 1 was a penalty, 1 was a direct free kick, 1 was an own goal, 1 was a corner, 2 are outside the 18-yard box. And I've only written, I don't know if that adds up to 6, actually, because I'm including the Bradford goals here as well in the 2 games they scored there. So what's that? 8 goals. I've written outside the 18. 1 was well worked. 1 was a soft free kick. 1 was a set piece. 1 was a defensive mix-up. Another 1 from outside the 18. 1 was an own goal. 1 was a corner. So, yeah, they're low percentage chances. And, yeah, they went in. Well done them. But that's not sustainable. So that gave me a little bit of hope in that they're not going to be the most potent attacking outfit. And in terms of XG over the course of the season, they're actually second lowest over the whole out of the whole league. 11.4 XG generated out of 14 matches. Scored 15 goals from that, which is, yeah, obviously more. But we mentioned on Sunday that as long as you're keeping opposition to 0s and 1s and you're restricting their chances, you don't need to score that many goals to be successful. What you really need is to keep them out. Well, their XG against is the worst in the league, 23.2, conceded 18. So they've conceded 5 fewer than they should have, and they've scored 4 more than they should have, according to the numbers, which indicates that they're probably not quite as good a football team as the league table suggests. And their recent results maybe don't paint a most accurate picture as to how good actually are they. They've probably got a little bit fortunate in a lot of those games. So this gives me a little bit of confidence going into Saturday.
Okay. I mean, I think from what I was looking at, it seemed that, yeah, they're about things like the XG table and things like that. It seemed to be I think it was 1.044 per game, and then 1.4 against per game. So they, like you say, they're conceding more than they're creating, which obviously gives us a bit of hope for that. But the thing that stuck in my mind a little bit was that stat about they just haven't conceded in the opening 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because as much as their XG is the worst, they haven't had the most shots against. So it's not like the goals being peppered. it just means that when they do concede chances, they're generally quite high percentage chances. And the numbers back this up again, because there's only one team in League One that concedes a higher percentage of their chances inside the 18-yard box. So it means the chances that they do give up are in really good goal scoring positions, which will naturally have a high XG next to them. So you're right, their goal isn't being peppered. They're very good at keeping it tight early in the game. They appear to be quite susceptible just after half time, oddly. So from 30 to 60 minutes, that's when they've conceded the majority of their goals. And they're also pretty susceptible on the flanks, it appears, according to the numbers I've seen.
I was going to mention that because I did notice in the game last night, their wing-backs tend to stay very high up the pitch. So there was a couple of moments, and I think it might have actually been Burton's second. It was their second because the first one was a corner. The second goal, and there was another really, really good chance where basically they were able to overload quite easily on their centre-backs because the wing-backs were staying up so high up the pitch that the ball went through quite quickly, and Burton were able to capitalise on that. And I was just sat there thinking, can we get? You mentioned earlier about wide players with a bit of pace, a bit of flair about them. I'm just sat there thinking, do we maybe not have Ben House on the left on Saturday? Put Ben House in the 10 role, Eric Ring on the left, Rob Street on the right. They've both got a bit of pace about them, and we saw on Saturday what Eric's capable of. If we do that, and then they're doubling up with Reach and Tendai, that gives us a hell of a lot of options down the flanks.
Yep, you're absolutely on the money. Like, width wins a game, in my opinion. Width wins a game against Rotherham. You can even if you only want to overload one side, even if you're more conservative on one, like we did against Salford, we knew which of their weaker side it was, so we wanted to keep our right, their left open, so we could then exploit that with with space to run into, which we got in 2 or 3 times with Eric before he actually scored. But yeah, you're absolutely right. 100% width wins the game, in my opinion. Now, there is a downside to that in keeping your wingers wide and keeping your fullbacks on the overlap, and that it leaves you open to the counter-attack. But with Rotherham's pretty poor attacking record, they are 22nd for shots on target, 21st for big touches, 22nd for touches in the box, 20th for possession won in the final third, so it's unlikely they're going to press too high either. And also they are one of only, I think, 4 or 5 teams who are yet to score a goal on the counter-attack so far this season. I think that's a risk worth taking. So I just seen there's a question from Devon Imp in the chat, and you mentioned it in your little analysis there. I was really pleased to see Eric Ring start on Saturday against Salford, but it also made tactical sense against Salford's weakness on their left. I think there's a similar argument to start Eric on Saturday as well, with some natural width to get one-on-one with the fullbacks or the outside centre back, should I say, and to cause some problems. I really think width wins the game here. It doesn't always. Sometimes you want to protect the middle of the pitch and keep it as tight as you can. And Rotherham have been doing that themselves in recent weeks, certainly centrally, which is why they've been able to push the wing backs on. But I think that's the way to do it. I think we have at least one natural wide player that is holding width, and that slightly more traditional winger, I suppose, is kind of, it makes sense to have at least one of those in the team today on Saturday.
Yeah, no, it just stuck in my mind last night looking at it, going, they do seem like susceptible to that. And Steve says in the chat, watched last night and thought Rotherham were poor mates, but they kept going and drew. We have enough in the squad to come away with the points of the Imps. Yeah, I just have this thing in the back of my head. It's like, it's Rotherham. We don't win at Rotherham.
Yeah, there's that. And there's also the fact they scored a last-minute equaliser, which feels like a win on Tuesday night. And that's going to be, a huge boost to confidence, isn't it? And, it can work 2 ways, can't it? Because you've mentioned we're playing quite well, but not scoring the goals. Rotherham aren't playing that well, but are winning games and getting results. But if you keep getting results and not playing too well, maybe that gives you the confidence to then the performances start to improve. Maybe on our perspective, if we continue to not score, then the performances do start to drop. So then the numbers then don't matter as much because they start to go in the opposite direction. But I'm a numbers guy. I'm a data man, and if I'm looking at the data, it makes sense for us to be favourites here. You can see a definite weakness in Rotherham's side. We've got not a lot to be worried about from them from an attacking perspective. So bring on a 1-0 Rotherham win.
I was going to say the other thing as well that we do have to bear it in mind. They're going through a bit of an injury crisis at the minute. They played in they played in the FA Cup against Swindon, where you were allowed to name 9 substitutes. They could only fit 7 on the bench, and there were 12 players missing.
Yeah,
that seems substantial. And from the game last night, I think I saw an interview with Matt Hamshaw, and he said in there, there were 6 players last night that should have only played half an hour. So it seems like there's a real injury problem going on at the minute. And then two further players went off on Saturday with injuries. So I think with the intensity that the game was played at last night, I think it was a really good game to watch, but it was pretty full throttle. With that and the injury situation, I think that can only play into our hands as well. I think they look like they might well be a bit knackered come Saturday.
Let's hope so. Yeah, so that's probably the second point to my previous point. That's the difficult part about predicting. You don't know what's happened yet, do you? So the prediction maybe they'll be full of confidence, and maybe we'll not be quite as confident because we're finding goals to score. But like I said, we're making chances, and then they're not. However, you see, they had an energy-sapping game on Tuesday, and they've got a really thin squad. They're probably knackered. Like all of the odds are in our favour here, in my opinion.
The Swindon game went to extra time as well.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, blimey, they've had a very energy-sapping few days. It's not a very recognisable Rotherham squad anymore.
No.
There was always a few players that were kind of stalwarts of theirs, aren't there? That have been around for a little while, and there aren't really many of those players left in their squad. It's a very kind of new look Rotherham squad, and I can't help but feel that it's a weaker one as it stands.
Anybody that stands out in particular for you, Chris?
I've always quite liked Josh Benson, who they signed from Barnsley. I always had a bit of a problem with injuries. Was an interesting player that never really seemed to take off. And also, I used to like Kiana Tete years ago as a centre forward, and when he was kind of breaking through, looked like he could be a real handful, but has never really found that consistency. Daniel Gore is a highly technical player. He's playing centre mid, but the only player really that I look at that I think I'd have you in my team in a heartbeat is Joe Powell, and he's probably the only one that's really remaining from that previous previous group of players that they had for a little while. And he's probably only been there 2 or 3 years, hasn't it? But it feels like he's been there a long time.
Yeah,
I like Joe Powell.
Burton previously, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. I think, and I could be wrong, that we were linked with him at the same time that we were linked with Anthony Scully.
Oh, okay.
And they were both at West Ham potentially, and then one went to Burton, and obviously Scully came to us. But I like Joe Powell. I think he's a good central midfielder. Really good dead ball delivery. I'd certainly have him in the team or in the squad at least. But there's not really anyone that worries me hugely. Now, one thing that is worth caveating everything I have said so far is that in our Stacey West Discord, we have a prediction league of which I am pretty close to the bottom. so maybe I don't know what I'm on about actually.
Well, Chris is the only person in that prediction league that has 2 entries, because in one prediction he said my head says this and my heart says this, and you said you went with your head, but I gave you a little bit of an out, and I said, okay, well, I'll let your heart have the win on this one, because the heart got the results.
Was that the Stevenage game? I think I said 0-0 head and 1-0 heart, didn't I?
I think, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
I'm going to go with my heart then, Jack. Then Ben, I'm going to go with my heart.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, Gerard does make the point in the comments that I did have down in my notes. I forgot to mention they have only lost once at home so far this season: 1-3, drawn 3, and lost 1. They've got a decent home record.
Yes, yeah. So their home record is certainly better than their away record, but then it's then digging deeper because that was the very first thing I noticed is that bloody hell they're unbeaten in 5. God, why couldn't we have played them a month ago? And, well, are they good at home? Are they bad at home? Like, what does that look like? Oh, no, they're quite good at home. They've only lost once. But then when you dig a little bit deeper into the individual matches that they've played and how they've panned out, and then the underlying data that kind of paints a picture, same story really as what we said earlier, in that I don't think that they're quite as good at home as their results suggest they are. They're as good at home as their performances suggest they are, and they're two very different things at the moment for Rotherham. So, hey, like I said, every game's individual, every game's different, and there's 11 players playing against 11 players that are all human beings, and we can all have an off day or a good day, can't we? But if we're trying to predict, I'm pretty confident that if we are somewhere close to on form, we should have too much for Rotherham going forward, and I feel that we can score. I don't know if we can score multiple goals, but I think we can score, and I think we can keep them at arm's length. So my prediction is going to be a win to nil, probably a 1-0 win. It's probably going to be our prediction here.
Fair enough. I would quite happily settle for that one on Saturday. I did say that I'd like to see maybe in terms of the width and using that. I did say I'd like to see maybe on the right having Tendai and Rob Street going down. That's not going to happen though, is it, Chris? Because Tendai is suspended for the game. So I think this probably puts us in a spot to answer Andy's question, which says, what would your starting 11 for Rotherham be? So let's go through it. I mean, obviously, George Wickens in goal. I don't think there's any question on that one. For me, I would say a back four similar to the back four that maybe started on Saturday, with Adam Reach at left back, Riley Towler at left centre back, Adam Jackson right centre back, and then Dexter Lembikisa.
No Sonny Bradley.
Oh, of course, he's back, isn't he? Yes, my bad. Yes, Sonny Bradley instead of Riley Towler. No offence, Riley. So yes, Sonny Bradley. For God's sake, Sonny Bradley and Adam Jackson centre back with Dexter Lembikisa on the right. And then we've got our two holding midfielders. I'd probably say Bayliss and McGrandles, because I don't think they've done too much wrong. It was good to experiment with Ivan on Saturday, but I don't think he's quite there for a league start just yet. I'd like to be proven wrong, but we shall see. Then in terms of the three, this is where maybe a little bit controversial, but I would drop Freddie Draper, move Ben House into the middle, and then play Ring and Street, and then have James Collins up top.
Interesting. I'm not a million miles away from you. I think mine would certainly be 4-2-3-1. I think that makes sense to stick to that and play it as a 4-2-3-1 rather than a 4-4-2, as we often have. They do play back three rather than more ways. But as we mentioned, the in is wide. So what do you want to do? You want to create as much width as you possibly can. You want to try and find ways of creating space between the centre backs. So I think having a less one-dimensional number 10 makes sense in that regard. So I'd be Reach at left back, definitely get him on the overlap. I'd be Bradley and...
Not Sonny Bradley, Chris.
Yeah, Sonny Bradley and Adam Jackson. I'd have Hamer at right back, personally.
Okay.
I think he's got the ability to get up and down if we need him to, but offers that more one-on-one defending, and then gives us the option for us to transition into a back three if and when required without us having to make substitutions, which I just always like that. I think that gives Rob Street license to then maybe keep that right side, that right flank slightly more open for him to exploit. Ring on the left with the freedom to drift inside as and when. So he has the option to kind of run one-on-one with the outside centre-back if he gets the opportunity to do so. And then he's got Reach on the overlap if needs be. I'm with you, McGrandles and Bayliss. Totally with you with House in the 10. And I'd go Draper up top, actually, because if you're playing one up top against a back three, you want your striker to occupy two centre-backs. And I think Freddie could do that. Probably James Collins can do that as well, but I think Freddie, just with his stature and how he plays, he automatically kind of gets that little bit more attention and a bit more obviously physical. And I just think that potentially could create space elsewhere. So I think Freddie's role would almost be quite sacrificial and almost like a decoy in a way. He'd be there to win flick-ons and back into players, but actually probably not there to get on the end of very much. He's on there to create space for the likes of Street and Ring either side to get in. That would be my selection, but I do not get paid the big bucks to make these decisions. We don't know how the players have performed on the training pitch, but I would expect a strong word. I think expect might be fair. I'd expect Ring to get another start here. I think he earned it with his performance on Saturday, and it fits in tactically. So we shall see.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're all rooting for Eric, or as his passport should state, Stacey West sponsored Eric on that one. And it was very good that you got that in on the commentary on Saturday.
Thank you. It's one of the first things I said.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's just about going to do us for the week. One thing to mention, I think there are still some tickets available for the evening with Jez tomorrow. It's going to be very good fun. Me and Chris have got tickets for that, so we shall be there. And they're just fascinating evenings. So I think it's scheduled to finish at around 8 o'clock. So I'm fully anticipating leaving the training ground at 9:30 because that's how these things always tend to go. But yeah, I don't think we have. Oh, go on. Have you got?
I was just going to ask, what time does it start for people that would be interested in attending?
6:30 it starts. So yeah,
that was also for me a little bit as well.
Of course it was. I wouldn't expect you to know that. Right. Well, I think that's about everything. Unless there's anything else, Chris, that you have to ask.
No, all good. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, in that case, there's only one more thing to say, and that is, of course, up the Imps.
Up the Imps.